Hello folks, how we doing today? We doing okay? Awesome. We're ready to talk turquoise today. On behalf of Pueblo Native Arts, I would like to introduce to you a very good friend of mine, someone who has really done the industry a lot of good, a man with a very good heart and a good constitution about himself. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Jodan Lowry. Good to see you, brother. So, today, I had this whole formal script worked out, this whole formal interview, and we got to talking earlier and we said, that's not us, so I crumbled it up and threw it away. So we're going to kind of wing it today a little bit, so to speak. He and I go way back. He kind of has been an inspiration to me to continue to promote Native art and to keep the heartbeat alive of it, because turquoise is such an ingrained thing in our culture as Native American people, and he is one of the protectors of that culture, as well as turquoise. So I think one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, Jodan, was tell us a little bit about your family history. 5 generations in turquoise. That's a lot of knowledge.
It is a lot of knowledge. It's also a lot of personalities.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So I don't have to imagine.
Yeah, if you know this personality, it's a lot for just one man.
So in my generations, my great-grandfather got involved in turquoise and Indian trading back in the 20s and 30s, and then started dealing with the Villa Grove turquoise mine in southern Colorado. And then after that, he started cutting and trading turquoise, and then he had a whole bunch of kids, and my grandfather was the oldest boy, and it was Grandpa's passion. And him and his brother Donald bought and sold turquoise, and Grandpa saved as much as he could to where he saved tons and tons of turquoise and preserved history that way. To where that later on in the 3rd generation, where all of a sudden the turquoise mines were disappearing and no longer being mined, he still had the collections of all of the different mines, and that's what we based the museum on. But I had an uncle who did a lot of silversmithing and education and manufacturing. He's the one that taught me how to cut turquoise.
Right.
So if you're family and you're learning how to do anything, my son thinks my uncle is a wonderful man, educator, to work for.
Right.
I didn't like it. I don't know. It's 2 different people. I'd show up with a handful of stones on sticks coming down the hallway ready to show him how hard I worked, at 12 or 13. And he'd look at me and go redo them. And I'm like, you haven't done them yet. And he's like, go redo them. I'm like, so I quit. Often quit. I often quit. But anyways, so you have to learn how to cut, learn the different mines. My dad is a cool personality.
Yeah, your dad is very cool. Yeah.
He is quiet and just exudes authority with just being quiet. I'm like, I'm here. And my dad he's there. Anyways, he did a lot of education with the industry through the Indian Arts and Crafts Association and through national parks and major museums and stuff, and he laid the foundation for the education along with my uncle.
Right.
And then when we started the museum, it was kind of a natural blend.
This is one of the major reasons we're here today, is the educational part of turquoise. That's paramount for you with the museum. And this is something you're always telling me is very important, but also turquoise has enabled Jodan as well as us at Pueblo Native Arts to have relationships with people, to establish stories with people, to listen to their family tales, how turquoise has come to their lives and blessed them. It's a good luck piece, or it's given them good health. And that's something that Jodan and I are very passionate about. And that's why you've been in the business for as long as you have, I think.
Yeah, I'm a lousy salesperson, so I chose education.
Yeah.
And I can talk, but I can't close a sale. But I love that everybody in this room is different. There's women and men, but everybody's different. There's not a woman that's the same, man that's the same. You can't make a script and it says, okay, all men meet this, all women meet this. And turquoise is the same way. And so when you realize that and you can become passionate towards it, you can appreciate all kinds of variety, all kinds of histories, and you also, if you truly learn the power of turquoise, you can learn to enjoy the imitation. You can learn to enjoy the con artist, because they are some that have the best stories. And that's a fact. Same thing in life. You know, we don't all of a sudden wake up and say, I'm not going to get conned today. We wake up, enjoy the day, and then we realize, wait a sec, that wasn't true. But we collect stories, we collect people, and Turquoise parallels that all the way through life. And it teaches you how to appreciate cultures and religions, and it teaches you how to empower yourself with that kind of education, how to get along.
Right. I think one of the mysticisms is that turquoise is strictly from the American Southwest.
Yeah.
And it's actually global. It goes all over the world. There are Egyptian stones, Persian stones. Some of the highest grade turquoise in the world comes from China. I think we can say, as something, a fact that you shared with me, is the most common color of turquoise. Do we know what it is? There's one gentleman that does. There you go. It is white. Yep, we learned that from Joe Dan. So there is a lot of mysticism we're going to try to dive into a little bit here, and dispel some of answer some questions that we may have out there. But I also think it's a really good time to say that turquoise can also become a political discussion. I mean, some people will say Bisbee is the great, or the best, or number 8 is the best, or so-and-so is the best, or they can argue color and hues and what makes this stone the best. But we're going to try and stay away from those particular, or not to go down those avenues, but just to simply enjoy the beauty of turquoise today and celebrate it. So with that said, you know, we were talking about the history of Joe Dan's family and stuff, and they have these really cool books. This is Turquoise, the story of a fascinating gemstone. Also Turquoise Unearthed, which we have for sale across at our gift shop if you guys are interested, and maybe even asking for an autograph. He might do that for you if you twist his arm hard enough. Lord knows I've tried that many times. So, but they've traveled the world to create these books, and they know turquoise. And I was talking to his mother earlier, and I guess they were traveling and they were allowed access to a lot of turquoise collections across the world. You want to tell me a little about the creation of these 2 books?
Well, the creation of any of the books has to do with your knowledge, and then it depends on if you want to market yourself or if you want to tell the true story of turquoise.
Right.
And so there's always those blends. It's like one of my fun stories about the smaller book. When we were developing it, we tried to do the 21 of the most recognizable mines in the United States, and then throw in the Persian and some Chinese. But it was just an introduction to turquoise. Well, at that time, we were mining a new mine in New Mexico, which was called Enchantment. So I had to call the guy who had number 21 and tell him that he wasn't going to be in this book because we were going to put Enchantment. And it's people, you know, and he laughed, and he's in the other book. And all of those kinds of things are how you build histories. Things become famous because somebody's heard about them. Things become supply and demand. And so it's not all just a truism of fact. It's a product of people marketing. It's a product of people talking and relationships. And that's what makes it fun. An opinion doesn't make you wrong. It's the person who hears it that might say you're wrong, but that's their opinion. And I love that kind of stuff. I love for people to come in and say that they don't like Lander Blue turquoise, they like Hachita turquoise. Because I want to know why. I want to see through their eyes. And so this book is an introduction to a lot of the different mines that are given names because they have a variety of different kinds of matrix and colors that you can identify them. Just like if you're looking at wines have different names and histories. Dogs have different breeds, and they can mix the breeds. And so turquoise becomes very fascinating when you get past it just being called turquoise. And so this book was our initial introduction to that. And then this one, we traveled the world and introduced every subject of turquoise. So instead of hearing about the imitations, this one pictures them and defines them, so that you don't have somebody just say, well, this is this. Okay? It's like today we're telling you that most common color of turquoise is white. You can go to the tables back there and see some. There's a difference between seeing it and somebody telling you. And so this book, with my wife's photography and a couple of my mom's pictures and what we did the photography in, we have imitations all the way through, mining all around the world, how you grade turquoise all around the world, the mystical qualities all around the world as it relates to everybody in our broader world, including the Southwest, which is the focal. And so that's why it's the world story. And it's the only one in the world that is written that way because it costs a lot of money to do a lot of pictures. There's over 510 pictures in this book. And so it's an impressive book. This book just came out in Japanese too, and we added a half a pound. So this one weighs 4.5 pounds. The Japanese version, which is back there, weighs 5 pounds. So, and then it'll come out in Chinese, and then it'll come out in Spanish. And the goal is to have the world speak one language about turquoise. And so that's education. And
I love how the book connects the different parts of the world and the different beliefs and the different philosophies surrounding turquoise. How was that diving into actually learning about this on your own?
You have to overcome your assumptions. So like when I went to China for the first time, I had done all my interviews. You know, when you're going to do an interview, you're trying to, if you're leaving your perspective out, you're trying to do it to where that somebody who comes later can find all of your mistakes and correct them. And so you have a consistency. You always ask people the same questions over and over so that there's a consistency to the global study. And so one of my questions, when I would ask all of us American people, I would say, so how long have you been mining turquoise? Or how long have you been selling turquoise? How long have you been cutting turquoise? And so in China, I start off at the mines, and I'm like, okay, so how long have you been mining turquoise? And the guy goes back to the interpreter, and he says to me, he doesn't mine turquoise. And I'm like, well, it's number one on my chart here for mining. How long have you been mining? You know, name, how long have you been mining turquoise? And he's like, he doesn't mine turquoise. I'm like, well, what does he do? And he says, he is a mine owner. Only the workers are the miners. And I'm like, I'm a mine owner. And so the language is different. The expectation is different. Well, that's true in how jewelry is made, how it's marketed, what people say about their product and all of that. And it's stunning when you realize that you're a part of the world. And so if you want to learn how to have that conversation greater, you have to be able to learn where you're at and how to express it. And so in China, they have thousands of workers working. Well, if you come to the Turquoise Museum, we have one worker. You know, and so the Chinese are like, but you're Joe Dan, why are you cutting turquoise? And I'm like, but in America, it means you're special. And they're like.
And I can contest to the truth of that. Many times I've gone to see him. He'll come out from the back. Ira, nice to meet you. Hey. Thank you, Joe Dan. Always wet hands from cutting stone, let me tell you. Yep.
Always warm, though.
Kind of creepily warm, but I say, but it's okay, man. So what was that like as a young boy going into the mines and putting your hands on it and actually doing the work?
It teaches you that it's the same with the people. It all goes back to the people. I have a cousin who looks different than I do. Long hair, and he lived a different life than I lived. But if I see him...
Present you, not 1970.
Yeah. No. He likes my outfit.
Yeah, very disco. I like it.
When we're walking on opposite sides of the street, we cross and we talk because we know each other. We're different, but we know each other. And so when you learn to touch the turquoise, you learn to work with the turquoise, you have a different conversation. That's why you all are here. It's not that you bought a piece of turquoise, it's that you want to know about it. And the artist can tell you about it, the miner can tell you about it, the stone cutter, and it's fascinating how you blend all of those people and all of their culture and all of their opinion into one piece of jewelry. And that's what you learn when you go into a mine and you touch it. Or when you go and you cut your own piece of turquoise. I had a girl come from George Washington the other day visit the museum. And they're all over, there's a bunch of them all over. I don't know if some of them came here doing different studies about New Mexico that makes New Mexico different.
Yeah, we saw a few yesterday, yeah.
And so she's like, so if I show up, what do I get to do? And I'm like, oh, I'll take you and I'll let you cut your own piece of turquoise. She was so excited to touch her turquoise and cut it that she couldn't cut it. She's like, oh, this is so exciting. And it looked like she was scared of the wheel, but she was excited because she was blending what she wanted to do with real. And that, hugging somebody or whatever, that's what touching turquoise means. That's why it is when people learn about it, they participate. When I go back east and do a lecture series and there's all these people in the room, and they only had 12 chairs out, and then you have all the other chairs, and then you'll have all these men walk up and they'll pull out all these bolo ties. And the wife will always say, I don't know why he owns all these bolo ties, he never wears them. But when they come out here, it's not New York. It's not, you're on the subway and it's like, hello, how are you? And they're like, because they don't talk. But when they come out here, they're fascinated by the cultures and by the variety and by the people, and turquoise matches that inspiration, right, from touching it from the mind onward. And you have stories. And so, these guys have 30 bolo ties that they don't wear. But every time they come out here, they buy them. Or rings or whatever. Right. But there's a reason. It's a greater purpose in it than the money or the tourism. It's that they found something real. And that's what you find when you go to a mine and you touch it, or you buy it and you cut it. Right. Or you watch some of these artists in the detail, the way that they create their own art forms and use it. It's all the same.
Yep. Come in, it will pick up a piece of turquoise, and they get a vibration from it, or they feel the aura of it, or the magical part of it. And that was one of the questions that came in via our social medias. If they feel an aura, they feel a connection to it, and I'm sure that's like that worldwide. For turquoise. And the best thing we do as of course salespeople of Native American art is that they have that spiritual connection to it. We say, buy it, take it. It belongs to you. It's calling you. It is something that needs to be with you. It wants you to go and take it home. So
see, I can't tell them that. I just can't do that.
Because he can't close a sale, right?
I can't do that.
I'm a salesman. Sorry.
Would you like to know more about it?
So that's how we roll, man. So, yin and yang, that's how we go, man. So tell me about China.
What about it?
The experience of exploring turquoise there.
Same as here. It's people.
Right.
It's like one of the things that I've always been fascinated with the cultural center.
Sure.
Is that people will say, well, why should I go to the cultural center? I'm like, because they're going to give you an introduction to a world you don't know. Then when you go to Acoma Sky City, when the guide is guiding you around, you already have an awareness. You can hear, you can see some of the things that he's saying, and so you're hearing at a different level. You're participating. I said, then do the ultimate. Go to one of the Pueblos. They'll have the signs out that they're home, come buy their jewelry, their rugs, their pottery, whatever, and go share with them and meet them. And they're like, you can do that? I'm like, yeah. And so it's the experience. And the same thing is true in China. You show up, and you just meet people and you ask to see things and you go from there. Right. And that's what my grandpa did in Iran and all over the world. He would just show up, and he had this humor and this gentle way about him, and he'd just lay his head back and laugh, and people loved him. And because of the personality and his willingness, he met people from all over the world. Right. And it's the same today, and so I just follow in those kinds of footsteps. My uncle was that way, my dad's that way. Right. And then my son, who's 5th generation, he's my grandpa. He just is. I'm sarcastic when it comes to things, and my son just loves the moment with people. Right. I mean, he's totally different than me. He's a great kid. He's a good guy. You've done a really good job with him. If you guys want to meet him, he'll be back. He's back there at the back of the room. Yep. So wave hello, Jacob. Hello, Jacob. How you doing? We've got a whole table full of demonstration pieces. You guys are welcome to, after, walk back and ask questions, and they'll do their best to answer them for you. But Jacob is a turquoise expert, which leads me to expert. The term, we can really never be experts at anything because we're continually learning. Always got to learn. We always got to learn. But what I really appreciate about you, Jodan, is you actually get your hands in it. You know it, you know to cut the stone, you know how to cut it. You can look at it and you appreciate the beauty of it. With all the years' experience that you have at this, are there mines or are there stones now that maybe or just new discoveries that someone brings to you that you are completely blown away by it? Yeah, there's do you want to do imitations or mines that I'm blown away by?
Let's
being
talk
serious.
mines first, and then we'll talk imitations.
There's a new mine in Nevada, and it is instantly a classic.
Right.
Killer turquoise, and it's back there, and it's called Black Web Gem, and two of my friends mine it, and it's not cheap, but it is killer, absolute blue with black web American turquoise, and it's only been on the market a year. It's in the Japanese book, not in this book, but it's back there to show samples. But a lot of people don't know, in New Mexico, the Tyrone turquoise is the best New Mexico turquoise.
Right.
And they've never seen that. And so there's new discoveries. For me, might not be way ahead of somebody else's discovery in that sense. But a new discovery is when you find out, not just when I find out. And so you can be introduced to all kinds of new turquoises if you start learning and participating in it. Just like people today, there's people today that I've met before that I don't recognize, and then there's those who I recognize that I can't remember your name. I need my wife to be here. And my grandpa would go into a room, and it used to, as a little kid, you always watched him, and he'd always go over to grandma or somebody, and he'd say, "Who is that?" And they would tell him, and he'd walk up and go, "Hey, George, how are you?" And I used to think, Grandpa, that is not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to just remember. I do my grandpa's thing now.
Right. I just turned 43, so I'm with you. I know.
So new just depends on when somebody's been involved in it. But a brand new mine, yes. They're always being discovered. China has some of the best mines out there right now that are on the market. So it just depends.
Right.
I mean, there's less and less mines available, but there are new ones.
Right. So imitations.
Imitations.
Yeah. What are you blown away by?
First off, I'm blown away that people would rather accept an expose to a negative instead of realizing that if you learn for yourself, you can make your own decision. I'm fascinated that people have power over others by a negative. To me, we should always learn. Mm-hmm. And so first rule is that an imitation is not a fake. An imitation is imitating an original.
Okay.
So if I'm going to imitate turquoise, I'm going to imitate the color, I'm going to imitate the mineralogy, I'm going to imitate the hardness. If I misrepresent that, then it's a fake. But if I can misrepresent a mine, I can tell you that it's American turquoise when it's Chinese turquoise, that's a fake too. And so people get so flustered over those kinds of things instead of enjoying the fullness that their plate has to offer when they go shopping. They just give it one little category and let fear take over. And you can embrace and learn. My favorite chapter in this whole book is the imitations, because it's fascinating how they're sold, why they're sold, how they're made, why they're made. I'm sorry, but if you're out there trying to match a pair of shoes, and that's your purpose of the turquoise you're buying, it's irrelevant whether it's an imitation or natural.
Right.
You're buying it for the purpose of matching something. And so there's lots of different ways to buy. And people will say, well, but you're Joe Dan, you can't be for imitations. I am for representation. Art, if you look at Fan's glass, which was created by the Egyptians, Fan's glass is in all of their art, and it's in all the museums around the world, and it is very collectible. It's an imitation. It's glass. It was the first imitation to turquoise. But it's not a negative, as long as you know what it is.
Right.
And when an artist chooses what they're going to make their art from, that's their choice. It's also their choice if they misrepresent. That I have a problem with. But if people are being straight up honest, I think it's cool. More power to them. And so imitations is not a fake. Misrepresentation is where the fakes come from.
Right.
And so to give you a fun one, the new imitation on the market just came out 2 weeks ago.
What is it?
It's kind of hard to explain what it is, but you can take a turquoise, and you can crush it, and you can, how do you want to say it, bleach it, and then you can increase the copper content in it and a few other things of mineralogy, and then you can press it into beads or stones, and have turquoise that will test natural by GIA.
Wow.
Now, just so you know, that's all I understood about that. Because if you give me a follow-up question, I'll be like, well, other minerals and stuff, I'll be doing and so, and I don't know a lot. But I learned how to identify them. You learn the source. And but the guys who do these things, they are incredible people. And their fascination is science. I don't care for turquoise, the gemstone. I am fascinated by people.
Right.
And if anybody here wears turquoise, people, you're approachable. You can walk up and say hi to you. I know that because you have turquoise on. People with diamonds, and it's like, mine costs $5 billion, and it's like.
So now we know turquoise is better than diamonds by our interpretation, right? Right.
Always the salesman, always the salesman.
We have a lot of it next door too, so I'm just saying. So we have this cool little tool called Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff I know you don't know how to use.
No clue.
Right. I see him with his smartphone. Jacob!
No.
Yeah.
How do I get to this picture?
Yeah, how do I get this picture, right? People that have actually sent us some questions, and I'd like to jump into that a little bit if you could. Sometimes I have to tell Jodan, often it's 10 words or less, but I'll let him roll with it because he can talk a long time about turquoise. There's so many interpretations of it. So we'll try to keep it simple today. I'd like to leave a few minutes for you guys to ask him questions at the end, if that's okay with you guys. So the first question I would like to ask is from Michelle Sailor. She asks, my daughter would like to know what types of rock is turquoise generally found in, and where besides New Mexico is it found? Very broad question.
Okay, water is the conduit that brings the mineralogy into the hosting rock. So the hosting rock pre-exists. Then the turquoise comes in. Turquoise can form in any igneous rock, and that means any kind of rock that has holes, cracks, crevices in it. So it can form in granite, it can form in quartz, it can form in clay. It can form in anything that allows it to build a formation with water bringing it. And as far as where around the world, generally it's arid, dry climates, because if there's too much water, it washes away the mineral formation. And if there's not enough, it never gets done forming. So arid, dry climates, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, California, Mexico, China, Australia, so Iran, Egypt, places like that.
Right. I've seen it formed in shapes of skulls and teeth, and right?
Skulls and teeth? There are different kinds of mineralogical or geological formations to where that turquoise, a turquoise-looking formation will occur called odontolite on bone. There are, it's like when this book is written, just so you know, when people write books, and one of my favorite blogs or stories I wrote was all the mistakes in all of the turquoise books, including mine. And because I enjoy those kinds of moments, because we're all learning. Anyways, this publisher on this book, they have great power because you can't get a book published if they don't publish it. Anyways, he had, in this book here, he had a friend who he bought these teeth from that they said were turquoise. Well, anytime your enamel hits copper, you can get blue, but it doesn't make the teeth turquoise. But he didn't care. So in this book, one of the mistakes in this book is that those are turquoise. And so those are the teeth that you see. But turquoise, as it is a formation, it's a hydrated phosphate of aluminum and copper. Copper makes it blue, iron makes it green. It's a triclinic formation in its crystalline structure. And.
Right.
I'll keep it short.
Are you sure you weren't a chemist?
Nope.
Okay.
I wasn't a chemist, but I did rewrite some of the geology and mineralogy of turquoise 13 years ago. It took me 13 years to convince them to change what they had.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's quite an achievement.
Not really. Nobody cares and nobody knows.
Okay. I stand corrected. Wow. Holy man. So Kathy Varelli asks, so why do I hear that it's harder to find and the mines we have are getting depleted? I'm assuming she's from the Southwest. Yeah.
Okay, one of the scenarios that we're always battling in education is that most of the American history of turquoise that is written and accepted as fact and as historical evidence is written by the white man when he crossed the path and he only had one trade route to get here, and that was the Santa Fe Trail. So you have all of this history being lived all over this, whatever you want to call it, this part of the world, way back when. All of this history, and then you had the white man come on the Santa Fe Trail and intersected the history right here. And we don't have a whole lot of turquoise right here. But since we wrote our history, we just decided that this would be the center of it all. Does that make sense visually? I explained it not visually. Word-wise, did that make enough sense? And so one of the constant battles is that we've never had a lot of turquoise here. It has always been a trade bead. It has always been a bead or a gemstone that was traded for or mined and things like that, not from this localized area. And so many people are shocked to find out that China is the #1 producer of turquoise in the world. Mexico is #2. New Mexico does not have a lot of turquoise production. It would be Arizona and for sure Nevada, which is our #1 production. And so a lot of that has to do with the influence of how we came into contact and started writing about the history, not necessarily the reality of it. Because if we had come from the into what is now California, they have the stone hammer mines, which means they had stone hammers, which means it's the same time of mining as we have here. Same thing with Nevada and Arizona, but we didn't intersect those points until later. And so it's a trade. And there's lots of trading that goes on with turquoise. And so, yes, a lot of the mines no longer exist. They don't exist anymore. One, because the history that we generously wrote wasn't necessarily true.
Right.
And if you want to learn what I mean by that, if you go anywhere else in the world, their mines are protected. Like in China, they're protected by these huge walls. And if you go down from the hill, there'll be 300 or 400 people there that make a living off of those turquoise mines. And so you will see the wealth, and you'll see how they protected the wealth. Whereas if you go to an American mine, if there's a fence, it's because the government made us put up the fence. And so it's a whole different aspect. And so we've written our history, but we don't necessarily match what we wrote.
Right.
And so the expectation is different. But a lot of the mines no longer exist because we can't afford to mine them. They didn't have good turquoise, or the regulations for mining have made it too expensive to mine. And one of the big mines that we did have in the world, on the world stage, was the Sleeping Beauty mine, right. And they ran out of turquoise that was the graded that they needed at that mine. And so it's no longer in production for about 3 years.
Right. And some artists or some even tribes are very connected to that particular type of turquoise for the art they do. So they'll eventually will have to branch out and begin to look different places, I assume.
That's what I'm hoping they do.
Yeah.
Just because we lose a certain category doesn't mean we can't reinvent ourselves. Right. And so I'm looking for the artists who get inspired and reinvent. And then and I think a lot of the artists can become famous for that reinvention.
Right.
You know, creating new looks and developing new ideas with what is out there.
I think as a purchaser for Shumakola Native Arts, I am beginning to see some of the lower grade turquoises coming out ever since Sleeping Beauty mine closed. So hopefully there are artists out there, like you said, that try to blaze a new trail and work with something new.
Yeah.
Because it is every time a mine, especially closes in the Southwest, it impacts, of course.
Well, Sleeping Beauty was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. So
that's a big impact on our industry.
So I hope we can bounce back and recover.
I think it will. I think artists are creative, and I think they'll figure it out.
I hope so. So this question is from Dwayne Mariano. Can we still dig up turquoise, and where, when, how much?
over at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center gift shop.
Yeah. We'll bury
For a
few out
small
in the
fee, you
courtyard,
can
right?
dig in their showcases.
There you go. And we'll give a coupon 10% off. I close the sale somehow. Come on, man.
So you can mine turquoise. If you want a tour of mine, the easiest one is if you're in Nevada. The Royston mine does a lot of tours. And if you meet somebody and they want to take you out to their mine, you can do that. The frustrating thing is when we used to take people out to our mines, we would tell them, okay, here's your sign-up paper. You agree that you're going to be on our property. You can't sue us. You can't pick on us. You can't, all these things. And then everything that you find is ours. We are allowing you on our property. You don't get what you find. But then all of a sudden, you've heard of gold fever. It's the same fever. It takes over. And they'll be like, you would have never found this. And I'm like, that's not the point. You don't get $5,000 because you were on my property and you found it. And so generally, you're not supposed to go on other people's property that they own. Not that people don't. But that's why a lot of mines do not advertise where they're at or specifically where the veins are running, is because there are, imagine this, there are dishonest people out there. And I know, and then there'll be people, I just want to go mining. But I kid you not, every person I've ever taken, the fever takes over. You have these nice human beings that you're trusting, and then they become this person that, it's like, you would have never found it. Can't believe you didn't give me that piece. And it's like, here, have this one.
Small, tiny,
yeah.
in the shape of a tooth.
That's right. There you go. Have some white.
There you go.
But to answer their question, meet people. Go online, say mine tours. There's people in the Cerrillos Hills that will take you to some mine. Sometimes they take you to their mine. Sometimes they take you to somebody else's mine. Not going there.
You just did, man. It's like it's out there.
So all of those it's people. You just have to go meet them,
right?
And engage them. We'll have people. We're a small museum. We'll have people come in and they're like, "We didn't come to see the museum." I'm like, "Really? Because there's no other reason for you to be standing here." But our museum, is a strip center. And then everything is throughout the square footage of the strip center. Well, we're a private held institution. I don't need all of you in one day. I can't handle you. I just want 10 of you or 15 of you that want to come by and talk and share and where you're from. There's some of you that have been. And we've switched over to the next generation, my son, and some of you still came here. Apparently they wanted the full effect instead of what my son gave them. No, just kidding. I have bad humor. When you meet people, they love to share, and you can. Whoever this is, what did you say his name was?
His name was it Dwayne Mariano?
Dwayne.
Yeah.
If he will go and meet someone and overcome the insecurity of saying hello and listening and sharing, he will find that passion that he has to go find a source or a mine and tour it and mine it. He'll find that passion and have it fulfilled. But he has to find the right person.
Right.
And that's how you do it. And there are places out there.
Social media, people. Social media. Get onto Facebook. I'm sure you'll find somebody. Ruby Sanchez asks, how can you tell when you have a real turquoise jewelry or pieces of them? Such a broad question, because we just talked about the scientific of it. You can create a stone in a lab that is exactly or very close to a natural piece of turquoise.
And we have...
Well, is it getting harder and harder to identify them now?
It's harder and harder because the science is better and better.
Right.
And so unless you're going to go learn the sources each time,
sure,
you're really not going to. But by law, the word natural means you're buying the gemstone. That's number one. So if you're actually looking for your participation and you don't just, like I'll have people say, oh, it's impossible to learn. It's like you've only been here 10 minutes. I want to be an expert.
Yeah.
Like the word natural in writing, so you have something in writing. That way, if you were to bring me a piece of turquoise and say, so-and-so said this is lander blue and I paid $1,000 a carat, what do you think? And I say it's not lander blue. If you don't have it in writing, you cannot return it. But if you have it in writing that they said this is natural lander blue, and I say, no, that's natural Chinese, well, there's a big difference in price from $20 a carat to $1,000 a carat when you buy a 10-carat stone.
Right.
You cannot return it if you did not take the time to get the word natural and the identification of the mine in writing. Because he's going to say, no, that's not what I told you. I said it looks like lander blue. But if you have it in writing, it's a 4th-degree felony. So that's how you would do it. But guess what? We're people. And it's like anything. We want to figure it out. And that's part of the thrill. You don't want to be me. You want to be you. And so if you go shopping and you ask somebody, is this natural turquoise? And they say, well, we've been in this business for over 16,000 years and we guarantee everything we sell off of our brilliant reputation. You should know at that point that the answer was no. And so listening and enjoying your moment and buying for the right reason to buy anything is your own reason, not somebody else's. And so with a little bit of knowledge and an absolute, so if I tell you this is natural turquoise and that's good enough for you, you're wrong. You should say, can you put that in writing? And then if I say, well, I'm not going to put that in writing, why wouldn't I? There's only one answer. And that's how you know. If you want to be absolute, and if you don't think that's important, in 2002, I was selling natural lander blue turquoise for $15 a carat. Today it's selling for $1,000 a carat. If you have the provenance of it guaranteed in writing, then your grandchild is really liking it. And so provenance is important if you're going to buy the gemstone. And getting it in writing with that word is everything.
Right. Great. I guess this goes in the conjunction with the same thing. Something is real turquoise or not, which we've talked about, without ruining or disfiguring. How can it tell it is from the southwestern part of the United States, or are you unable to?
Same thing, you got to learn it. If you want to learn Bisbee turquoise and all of its colors, then you learn Bisbee. Then you go to Kingman and all of its colors. Then you go and learn all the imitations.
Right.
It's just source knowledge. It's just that most people are buying a piece. They're not trying to source out knowledge. If you all think it's all nice and easy, they're in our displays in the back. My son has a tray that has a whole bunch of imitation mixed with natural. And all you have to do is figure out which ones are natural. And none of you can do it. And that's okay. If you want to know how to do it, I can make one of the men in this room an expert really quick. Right? So what you do is, while everybody is over there flipping them over looking for the 3 that say yes on the back, stand back, wait till they find all 3, then try. I'm a man, I know how this works. Even in my expertise, and I'm smart, I can identify lots of stuff I look at. I always ask, what do you know about it and who told you? Because that's part of the knowledge of identifying the piece. And so all of the history matters. And the way you would know which 3 are natural, does anybody know? Because I already made you an expert. You just say, which ones are natural? Then you would know all 3.
Right.
But we don't. We're like participating. And that's fine. That's part of the fun of turquoise. It's not a diamond.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine going in the diamond stores? If somebody in a diamond store said, this ring is $1.8 million and this ring is $199. Do any of you freak out? No. You know that must really be rare and that one isn't. But if I told you the same scenario in turquoise, you would be full of questions. Because you look at turquoise as an inexpensive gemstone. Well, I guarantee at $1,000 a carat for a 20-carat stone or a 50-carat stone. I just sold a 17-carat stone the other day, delivered it to Santa Fe. 17 carats, he paid $1,000 a carat. And the only reason I sold it to him is he was willing to pay cash. And we went to the bank and he pulled the cash out of his safety deposit box, and then we went to the counter and he used one of those counter things to count it. And I'm like, can we do that again?
just stand there and feel the breeze of it.
That's right.
Engage in it. That's what I would
But
do.
that my grandfather would flip over and just tear me up and tell me that turquoise is not worth that. And he was the king of turquoise. And the world has changed. And you need, just like in artistry or in the buyers and everything, we need the next generation to understand. We need the education of how to make the art, how to protect the art, how to inspire new art, why it's expensive or why it's inexpensive. We need that because it does end up to the money, and the money is what supplies the education and supplies the car or whatever else anybody needs. And so that you guys are here is valuable more than just me having an opinion or him having a venue. It is important because you are the part that makes it all work. I mean, you don't want to be an artist or somebody who writes a book or plays a flute and have a venue advertised and nobody show up.
Right. I think it's so important, paramount, the educational part of it. Especially with native artists, we need to kind of rewind a little bit and learn a little more about our craft, the actual worth of the art that we're producing.
Right.
Because, without it, we're not advancing. And that is sort of a goal of ours with a lot of the workshops we're doing, is to continue that knowledge and that growth, which I think is really, really valuable and paramount, and it should be something that is in the forefront of what we do as vendors of Native American art. So I know you got in my ear about that, a while back, and so that's something that's definitely something to work for, a goal to strive for.
Yeah.
So we got, I think, about 15 minutes left, folks. So I'd like to open up the floor for any of your questions, if you have any. Let's see if we have any participants available. There's 4 readily available questions. So I'm going to ask one of our helpers in the back to come around with a microphone so we can hear your melodious voice up here. And we'll take some questions.
You probably should have your salespeople come up and the ones who already bought something get a question.
Okay. What? Who?
If they haven't spent any money in the gift shop, they don't get to ask a question.
I know.
Isn't that
That's why we have the gorilla at the door, man, as they leave. Man. This gentleman here, up here, Monique, right over here on the side there, toward the middle, back yet.
You talked about the quality of the stone, various qualities. How do you determine what determines the quality of the stone itself?
Anytime we're dealing with a gemstone, or anytime I'm dealing with any opinion, to me everything should be defined by geology, mineralogy, and the dictionary. And then once we have that base, then we can apply our opinion. But a gemstone is defined by rarity. And so what makes turquoise a gemstone is that 85% of what is mined in a production is unusable in its natural formation. It's too soft, it doesn't have a good color, it's ugly, whatever. So that 15% is rare, that means it's a gemstone. Then how you would grade that gemstone in geology and mineralogy, the rarest turquoise to find is that has the deepest, most brilliant colors. So whether it's blue or green, the deeper, more brilliant colors are your highest grades. Then you have 2 categories of rarity as far as the matrix or clarity and the rock. So the matrix are the lines and the dots you see in turquoise. That is graded by the same thing. Nature, the rarest formation is what we would call spiderweb. So the more aesthetic, evenly placed the matrix, the more rare, the more expensive. In clarity, you can cut away all of the matrix and have all the small stones you want. So clarity only gains rarity when it is larger than a dime or a nickel. So you have 2 different categories on that. And then the last category of rarity is the Americanization of turquoise. In America, we own the turquoise mines individually. And we market it individually. And so if you get it in a book, it becomes famous. If you don't get it in a book, it doesn't become famous. If you repeat your lies enough about your turquoise, people believe it. And if you don't repeat it enough, people don't believe it. And if you think I'm kidding, I ain't. There are reasons why certain turquoise mines are not in this book. But you have to learn the histories. So in China or in Iran or even in Mesoamerica times, the kings or the rulers owned the turquoise. not the individual. And so that is why you have Chinese turquoise, but in America you have Sleeping Beauty, Kingman, Tyrone, Bisbee. In Mexico you have Mexican turquoise. In America you have all of the names. As we've become globalized, the Chinese and the Mexican and the Iranians are all starting to name their mines because it is a brilliant idea. So the rarity of the mine is primary and trumps the mineralogy and geology of the color and matrix. Does that make sense? So the best mineral and geological formations of turquoise in the world are in China. The rarest turquoise mines are in America. And from those principles is how then now you can include all the opinions you want. But from that knowledge, those opinions should come from. So if you went to Dow Ward, who no longer exists, but if you had gone to him and said, what's the best turquoise mine in the world? He'll tell you Fox. Guess who owns Fox? Dow Ward. He is not wrong. That's his opinion. Okay, is that all right?
Any other questions?
That was 11 words.
Yeah, I know you talked about Sleeping Beauty, and I think I understand that it stopped production 3 years ago because of the quality and what was left. Will it ever come back, or what we buy out there is just what was left and we should grab it? I love it. Will they ever put it back in production?
I understand. If we own a turquoise mine that is just producing turquoise, then everything is separated in America. We have everything separated in 20-acre claims. All right. So you go and you buy a claim and you prove your value to whatever mineral is there. In this scenario, turquoise. There are other ways that turquoise is mined as a byproduct. In the copper industry and the gold industry, so a conglomerate would own a whole bunch of claims. And then whatever production of turquoise they get, you would buy the rights to that turquoise. That's how Sleeping Beauty is. That's how Kingman is. That's how Morenci is. And so it's not just an individual turquoise miner mining turquoise. They are buying the rights from the conglomerate. And so when whoever is going to get that right from that owner, then you're going to have to make a bid on stuff that is not even in production. And you would be talking lots of money. And so then they have to want to deal with you for the piddly that turquoise is compared to what they're really going after. And so it's more than just going up and getting your 20-acre claim and mining Sleeping Beauty. There's a whole lot of politics involved in it, big money involved in it, and you can lose your investment also in it. So nobody knows until somebody decides, hey, I want to do that. I'll be like, I know this lady in the front row, I don't remember her name, but I can look on the list, she wants some. But there needs to be a whole bunch of you if we would hit it. So I don't see it in the next 5 years being pulled up, especially with the Chinese turquoise that can match it, that they have.
Okay, I think we got time for one more, and she's back here in the black shirt.
I could just talk loudly.
Okay.
Why is Tyrone the best in New Mexico? What is it about the turquoise?
I have some back there for you to see. Remember that in the mineralogy and the geology and the formations of what is rare. So if you came to the Turquoise Museum, we'd have the Cerrillos, the Enchantment, the Hachita, the Oro Grande, all of the different New Mexico, the 7 deposit formations of turquoise, or you can look in the book. And you'll notice that only one of those mines produces a high-grade blue with a quality matrix. And that's why.
Okay, we got time for one more question.
And there is a box back there with Tyrone, so you can see.
The gentleman in the blue shirt here.
Hey, I got a question. In the very beginning, you mentioned Villa Grove. I have a ring that's fully inlaid in Villa Grove turquoise. What can you tell me about the stone and rarity? Villa Grove is actually a mine that was used by back in the 1930s and 40s by the Zuni artists and the Navajo in a lot of their cluster sets.
that most people would call Sleeping Beauty and Morenci today because they didn't know that Villa Grove had that big production back then. There has a gorgeous blue to it. There's a necklace back there carved by a friend of mine that is a 2-strand out of Villa Grove, if you want to see. And then that's one of the reasons why we do our museum, and I'm not plugging the museum. There's 80 different mines on display of all of the colors that came from that mine. So if you're looking at Bisbee, all of the colors. If you're looking at Kingman, if you're looking at... So the pieces you have on, you can see, or if you're trying to continue your collecting and you want to add a mine, which one do you want to add, and all those kinds of things. Because it's amazing. The Enchantment mine had 112 colors within 10 feet. So it's like, would everybody like to buy one color at a time? You know? So, but all of those kinds of things, that's part of the enjoyment. But Villa Grove, coal mine, the general color will be back there.
Thank you.
So, Joe Dan, thank you very much for coming out. Thank you, audience, for coming to visit with us today. Thank you very much. If you have any more questions, Jacob is in the back. You can look at the demonstrations back there for the pieces. I highly encourage you to purchase the book if you can. And stick around. We're still getting ready to do the giveaway for the books and stuff. This is kind of a very cool partnership with the Turquoise Museum and Shumakolwa Native Arts on just our behalf to say thank you for coming and thank you for participating today. One more time for Mr. Joe Dan Lowry. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.